Let's go straight over to my next guest who will be with me until 8 o'clock. He is the great James Price, former Tory party advisor, of course. Hello, James. How you doing, man?
Hello, my friend. I'm looking forward to getting into some of these stories with you. There's an absolute shocker I think we're going to do first.
Well, let's do this one because I've always been extremely perturbed by this thing called drag queen story time. Now, not so long ago, this used to be a big feature of lots of schools in this country, lots of libraries, where drag queens would go in and tell really young kids, 5, 6, 7, stories. Allegedly, typical fairy stories, fairy tale stories, that kind of thing. Now, I thought it had died out, but over in Northern Ireland, police have had to escort 2 drag queens from a public library where they had been telling little children stories, as they say, running a storytelling event. This was Drag Queen Story Time at Hollywood Arches Library in Belfast, and it featured 2 ladies, one called men, blokes in dresses, one called Portia de Monte, who calls herself Northern Ireland's first lady of drag. Wow. And the other one's called Miss Dora Bell. This ticket-only event was advertised as suitable for all ages and families. Anyway, it was then surrounded by angry parents screaming, "Leave our kids alone." And in the end, these 2 drag queens had to be escorted from this event, and the police drove them away. Now, the point is, I keep saying, before we get into the nuts and bolts of this, what is it about drag queens that they want to tell little kids stories? I can't think of any other section of society, of adult society, that goes around going, "We've got to tell little kids stories. We must tell little kids stories." I keep saying, you don't get coppers saying that. You don't get firefighters saying that. You don't get plumbers saying that. No one else says it except drag queens. So I would suggest that the reason these parents are extremely upset and demanded an end to this event is they think this is all about the sexualization of little children, and that somehow these drag queens get off on it. It's strange, it's wrong. The protesters were shouting, "Shame on you, leave our kids alone, do your own thing, but leave our kids alone." I think they're right. I sympathise with them, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely, I do. I think you had an interesting choice of phrase there to say that we should get into the nuts and bolts of these drag queens.
I did it on purpose. No, I didn't.
Absolutely. You're here all week. That's right. It is quite shocking, isn't it? I mean, there's one way to look at it, which is, oh, it's all fine. It's all like going to the panto, and isn't it a bit silly and all the rest of it? But in a world in which you've got so many people now who are dressing up as women, saying that they are women as well, and the drag queen has been in a sort of liminal space between, oh, it's just a bit of vaudeville fun, and actually a lot of them are now, well, no, you've got to use the right pronouns, and it's a way that some of them end up turning into trans people and all the rest of it. Okay, fine. We know there are interesting and difficult conversations and debates about where people should go to the toilet and all these sorts of things. And of course, the Reform leader Nigel Farage seems to think that these 2 drag queens would be put in a female prison, if anything is to go by from yesterday's conversation he had. Yeah. But your point is exactly
more of that
right.
later. More of that later.
Oh yeah, teasing that one for later. Why is it always children? Why is it always children? Why do they not go and do this with the elderly in old people's homes in the same way, or with the sick inside hospitals or in prisons? Why is it always the youngest and most impressionable? Now, there is one bit, I think, which is that we know that that's the most kind of transgressive, pun intended, and that's why the young mums are out there screaming about it and all the rest of it, just because they want to cause as much controversy and drama as possible. The other alternative, again, as you say, Kev, is that there are some people, I don't know if it's going to be the case with these two mentioned yesterday, that they actively enjoy having to pull small children into the sort of orbit of what for many people is a kind of sexual fetish. It's not a very pleasant thing to think about, but there is this idea with a lot of fetishes that people want to be included, including others, into it. It's why you have flashers and you have all these sorts of things as well. And when it's children involved, it really doesn't pass the smell test.
It really doesn't. Let's have a quick look. We've got some footage. This is of Lady Portia, I think, Lady Portia de Monte. You can't see the protesting parents, but you can kind of hear them. And this is as our drag queen friends were being ferried away by the police for their own safety. Have a look at this.
Seriously, like kids, absolute disgrace. Shame on the both of yous. Couldn't care what you're doing, but leave the kids alone. Seriously. 5-year-olds. 5-year-olds.
You do your thing. You do your thing, but you leave our kids alone.
Well, we didn't do anything.
You leave our kids alone.
I think the parents there making their feelings plain. And I mean, I think this is my view. That these drag queens by their, adults enjoy drag queens as much as you like. I've got nothing against drag queens. I've been to a few shows myself, which have been quite funny. They can be very funny people, but, I'm vaguely grown up. As we just heard there, these are two drag queens talking to 5-year-olds. I think drag queens get off on it. They get off on the sexual side of talking to little children. And the Communities Minister in Northern Ireland said that this event was not appropriate for children and should not have taken place. Another local politician, Timothy Gaston, said drag performance by its very nature is sexualised and exaggerated, and an exaggerated parody of womanhood rooted in adult entertainment and gender subversion. Why then is it considered acceptable for someone best known for adult-themed performances to adopt the same persona while reading stories to little children? It's a good point, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, it is. And look, I don't know in this particular case about it, but that is exactly right. And pulling people in, as I say, to those sorts of non-normal ways of doing it. It's one thing, again, if you want to go and pay for an event and, isn't it a bit gender bending and all that kind of stuff. But when it's children, and when children, frankly, and I'm sound a bit like Mary Whitehouse now, but we are living in an increasingly kind of overly sexualized society. The Bonnie Blue, I can't believe I know who this person is, but this is an adult film star who I think has broken a world record for the number of men she slept with in one go, is having think pieces being written about her in the Times and in other newspapers and things like that. And there's a documentary about her. I shouldn't know who this person is, let alone kids in school knowing who this is, or hopefully, I'm the only person in this conversation, anybody listening who's ever heard of this creature. But we don't need any of this stuff, and this isn't new. As you say, we thought it had died. The worst example of this, and I've got to get this one off my chest, is I think Redbridge Council a few years ago. I was going to show the picture, but we're pre-watershed, so I won't.
Please don't.
It was someone who was called, and I'm not making this up, you can Google this, the Rainbow Dildo Butt Monkey, who was hired to speak at a London library by Redbridge Council. And this
That's my wife you're talking about.
There's a very peculiar appendage attached to this costume. I won't say any more about it.
That's what was talking to kids, little kids.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's an extreme example of what we're seeing here. Drag queen story time should be banned. And as I say, I feel a little bit like disgusted of Tunbridge Wells, Mary Whitehouse and all that. But these are small children. They should not be exposed to what is adult entertainment. And that's that. Just before we go to break, I did want to talk to you about Labour's ongoing war on freedom of speech. Keep this one quick if you can, because I want to talk about Reform's new interesting new prisons policy in just a second after the break. But Labour is doubling down on calling anyone who has any doubts or has any criticisms, which we all should have, by the way, about the Online Safety Act, is doubling down on linking us and calling us modern-day Jimmy Saviles. That's what Peter Kyle, the Science and Technology Minister, called Nigel Farage when he said, "Oh no, you know, anybody who's against this act is siding with the pornographers, siding with the modern-day Jimmy Saviles." Now Jess Phillips has written in the Times, doubling down on it, say yes, you're by opposing this act, you are empowering modern-day Jimmy Saviles. This has got to stop. Because we know what they're using this act for. They're using this act so we can't see information that they don't like. For example, the Online Safety Act closed down access to footage of the asylum seeker protest outside Leeds Hotel last weekend. Incredibly, it closed down access to a Guido Fawkes, the parliamentary gossip column website. It closed down access to a story that revealed that no one has called their kid Keir in the last year. You weren't allowed to see this. This Online Safety Act is an assault on freedom of speech, and Labour Party love it, and they're trying to demonise anyone who opposes it, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly right. A couple of quick points on that. One on that, Starmer, the Keir name thing.
Yeah.
No kids called Keir, but hundreds of children in Britain called Yahya, which was the name of the leader of Hamas. So let's just wonder why they're doing that. By the way, that's storing up a whole heap of trouble. You're going to name your kid after a terrorist scumbag. I'm not sure you should be here in this country. On the censorship point, for any of you who are unfortunate enough to have Labour pals, if any Labour people admit to being Labour anymore and want to talk to you about this, how dare they vote against the national inquiry of the child rape gangs, the Pakistani rape gangs on young children across this country, and then accuse other people of not caring about child safety? How dare they? It's absolutely, utterly disgraceful, and they should hang their heads in shame. They don't care about children. This is pure playing points and playing politics. And on Starmer and his connection, by the way, to Jimmy Savile, he took all the credit for all the cases when he was the Director of Public Prosecutions, and yet doesn't take any of the blame for the fact that the Crown Prosecution Service knew about Savile and didn't act on it.
Decided not to prosecute him. Just to tell the audience, to remind the audience of what this act is actually being used for and the sinister extent of what it's being used for. Katie Lamb, the rather excellent Tory MP, made a speech last week in the House of Commons in Parliament, linking or suggesting that we have a problem in terms of sex offences being committed by asylum seekers. I think she's got a point. That was blocked. You couldn't see that, you couldn't get access to that because of the Online Safety Act. In other words, it was blocked because Labour didn't want us to hear that speech. Don't believe a word of this Jimmy Savile crap, folks. These people, this Labour Party, they're socialists, they don't like freedom of speech, and that's what the Online Safety Act for, is to make sure you don't find out the information that they don't want you to know. Be careful, Big Brother is watching you.